Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week we continue our series on anthology films with the 1985 film Cat's Eye. This is episode 297 for those of you keeping score. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have seen it, so warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, writer of the new book, Young Captain Nemo, Quest for the Nautilus. With me from Austin is Tony Salvaggio, tech director at Rooster Teeth, lead singer and bassist of the band Deserts Mars, and lead guitarist of the band Rise from Fire. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy. Also in Austin, writer of the long-running underground comic series Halloween Man, Mr. Drew Edwards. Say hello.
I'm trying to figure out if you spell Drew backwards, do you pronounce it weird or does the lack of an I?
Word.
Sorry.
It's word.
It would be
Word.
Verd, like Verdegast.
I think it's like word, like when people used to agree with each other, like word.
Did they?
Well,
They would say,
at least now we know my Son of Dracula name.
yes. We were trying to, before the show, trying to figure out what a good pseudonym for me to write under was, and everybody keeps suggesting Alucard, which I think is great. Okay. And finally, also in Denver, as always, color commentary from attorney Julia Guzman of Guzman Immigration of Denver. Say hello, Julia.
Hello, Julia.
Hello. Okay. Cat's Eye, also known as Stephen King's Cat's Eye, is a 1985 American anthology horror film directed by Louis Teague, written by Stephen King, has 3 stories, Quitters Inc., The Ledge, and General. The first 2 are adaptations of short stories in the Night Shift collection. The third is new for this movie. The 3 stories are collected by the story of a traveling cat who plays an incidental role in the first 2 and is a major character in the third. The cast includes Drew Barrymore, James Woods, Alan King, who's fabulous, Robert Hayes, and Candy Clark. Okay, Tony, I don't think I've called on you to start us up in a while, so let's get opening thoughts from Tony, Julia, Drew, and then I'll go. Cat's Eye, are you into this movie?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I might have liked it less this time, and I've seen it a bunch. It's a lot more mean-spirited than I remember it. Also, knowing James Woods from the internet now makes it kind of stomach-churning. So, yeah, it's kind of ruined.
Interesting.
But yeah, I mean, I like it, but the amount of animal danger and just the kind of spirit of it, I was surprised that I didn't really think of it that way in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a little bit more kind of grimy and I don't know. It's weird. It just seemed more violent than I remembered it, and more kind of gritty, and not the same kind of gritty ways that I usually like things. But it is still really good. Like it's well directed. It's interesting. The adaptations of the stories are cool. The design of the troll in the final one is really great.
Mm-hmm.
It's so cool. They did so much cool stuff with that. But yeah, I mean, I like it, but I didn't love it this time. Which is weird because I just went ahead and bought it because it was only like $1 more to buy it when I went to rent it.
Mm-hmm.
So now I own this thing that I'm like, I don't know. It goes to the filmmaker, so cool in the gang, you know?
Sure, absolutely. Wow. Okay, interesting. That I really wanted to get into that. So please keep coming back to hit on this angle of nastiness, because I hadn't actually thought about that. So, okay, Julia, you're into Cat's Eye, right?
Yeah, this is one of those films that just really made an impression on me, really stuck with me ever since I saw it when I was younger. And then, so I've seen it a couple more times. I agree with Tony, and Drew and I actually were talking about this before we started recording, that the cat, the shocking of the cat is actually quite shocking. I mean, it's like, I don't know how they did that, if they actually shocked this cat or if they just somehow like startled it with sparks and air or something. I don't know, but it's really, it's harder to watch it now for some reason. It's more upsetting because I guess we're so used to animals being treated well in movies now that you're like, wait a minute, are these cats not being treated well? And then, there's a few things. That James Woods thing doesn't bother me because whatever, he's an actor, but the cat thing does a little bit. But yeah, it's a very memorable film. I mean, I have always thought about the quitting smoking methods, used in this film, and how that would, like just kind of how that would translate to non-horror, as to what you would do. And then the thing with the little goblin, whatever he is, the gremlin guy, the troll, sucking the breath of Drew Barrymore. That visual has been with me my whole life. I mean, I just can't. So, and then the thing about going around the building on that tiny little ledge, it's just all these. They're very memorable stories and very memorable images. So, I think I always enjoy it. But I agree with Tony that coming back to it this time, there was a few things that I was kind of like, I don't know that I'd realized, before how upsetting that is.
I'm interested in what those will be. So, okay, good. That's good. Drew, what about you?
So this is a movie I enjoyed a lot when I was a kid. I think it's probably been 2 decades since I've seen it last. So revisiting this was interesting. I didn't remember the middle story at all. I had a pretty good memory of the Quitters Inc. and the troll story. The troll story being the one I remembered the best because I think it's definitely the thing that everybody remembers about this movie. I was also a little, like I said, Julie and I were already talking about it. I don't know how they got that cat to jump like that in the first story, but that was the only thing I found off-putting. I like horror movies sometimes with a degree of nastiness to them, depending on what kind of mood I'm in. And since I've been in kind of a cynical frame of mind periodically, like the sort of cynicism of some of the stories and that actually kind of appealed to me a little bit. I do think that the styles of the different stories is interesting because like they don't always mesh up well, in my opinion. Like because you have like the first part that seems to be more EC horror comics, and then the middle one which seems more like it would be at home on Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and then the third one which is more of a fantasy kind of thing. So like they all kind of take place in different genres. And it was also really interesting watching this so close to Creepshow too. But I still really enjoyed it. Like that sounds like I'm being really critical of it. I still really enjoyed revisiting it. It was kind of the James Woods thing. Like I actually, before he became a troll of a different sort, I actually always kind of used to enjoy him a lot as an actor. So like I'm kind of in between Julia and Tony. Like it was kind of fun to revisit the earlier versions of James Woods that didn't quite have the baggage attached to it yet. But
I mean, he's a good actor when he's in things. It's just it sucks when you see enough stuff of him being just terrible.
Yeah,
a terrible person, and you're like, oh man, do you have to be a terrible person? Damn it!
Yeah. Also, I think I always like seeing Drew Barrymore and stuff because like we're around the same age and we have the same name, so I sort of feel like I kind of grew up with her, and in the 90s, I don't know if it's appropriate to have a crush on somebody with your same name, but back in the 90s, I had a big crush on her. So
Oh heck, I know people who are married to people with the same name as them.
My feeling about first of all, with James Woods, I'm glad you brought that up because I don't know the first thing about what a troll James Woods has become recently. But I mean, if you said to me, hey, let's watch The Devil and Max Devlin, which has, Bill Cosby as the devil, I would totally watch that. In other words, I am totally down to watch a performance from a performer who I thought is good, even if they are literally a criminal in prison, and so
right.
I mean,
well, I mean that's your level. I'm not saying don't watch it. I'm saying if you know enough, it's gonna color when you watch something again.
That's true. That's
all I'm saying. Like,
well, you're not wrong.
You I mean, I agree with him. I mean, whatever, man. I personally like reading stuff he says, and then watching this was like, man, I remember before I knew this, and I wouldn't have thought about this, right? And that's all I'm saying. Like,
oh yeah, no, and
I've watched this film. I don't even know how many times.
I only bring it up because I think that's a fascinating thing to talk about it. Like back in Hollywood era, the old Hollywood era, we would never know because somebody just wouldn't be allowed to talk to the press. So the only version of somebody you would get is sort of this made up version, so that we don't really know if Donald O'Connor is a horrible person. We have the sweet Donald O'Connor version and I don't know why I'm picking on Donald O'Connor. I literally know nothing about his life, but you just get the one that gets filtered to you through the Hollywood, through the studios. Anyway, that's interesting. I will say somehow I've never been able to take James Woods as anything but kind of, he plays sleazy. Even when in this case he's supposed to be playing a sort of straight and narrow businessman, he nevertheless comes across as being, there's something slightly untrustworthy about James Woods as he projects himself. So anyway, we'll start out with the James Woods story, but I just wanted to say really quickly, Cat's Eye to me is the weirdest anthology because, first of all, it's quite short, or at least it plays really short because there's only 3 stories. And the bridge story is very, very light, which is you're following this cat around. And the stories themselves.
I wouldn't even know that I would call it a bridge story. I would
it is
the cat thing.
Right. It's the cat. And to the extent that it's tradition to have a bridge story, they've nodded towards it by giving us this cat. But I feel I like this one. I could play this one anytime. I could turn it on tomorrow. I could run it while we're having a party. I want to talk about the nastiness that Tony was picking up on. It's a really good point. However, I feel like it's definitely one of the most lightweight ones. It's funny to me that its reviews are so good because to me, this is the most like lightweight, Lifetime movie, easygoing anthology of all of the ones that we've watched. So so let's get into it. Okay.
There's very little in the way of violence, actually. I mean, there's outside of like the electrocution, which is of course bloodless.
Right.
Like I don't know what this was rated, but I wouldn't be surprised to actually
it's
find
PG-13.
that it was rated.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
first
PG-13,
It's the first Stephen King PG-13 movie.
There's a severed head that we don't even see. It's just a shadow, which is fine.
No, it's not. It rolls down the freaking.
Yeah, it rolls
down in the middle of the floor.
Yeah.
What are you talking
But
about?
I don't remember seeing like the torn flesh of the.
No,
of the
it's
neck
not
or
bloody.
anything
It's
like
not
that.
bloody, but it is a head.
I mean,
it's a head.
funny. It's funny that you say that because so let's talk about this if you want to talk about it. And this is what it's interesting that everybody sees, and I don't know. Maybe again, I always talk about how film is the cave tree thing in Empire, where you bring into it exactly what, as people may say, like, no, don't bring that in with you, and you go, oh, I'm gonna bring in my lightsaber anyway.
Right.
So it could just be my state of mind being in the times that we're in.
Yeah.
But what I noticed was there's the dog, which is pretty much Cujo, chasing the cat. And I've known cats who've been killed by dogs. That's terrible. And then cat gets caught. It's going to get experimented on.
Yeah.
That whole thing, the whole time, James Woods' wife is getting threatened, and they put her in a shocking device. When you say, like, oh, there's no violence, would you, if somebody kidnapped Julia and put her in a shocking room, would you be like,
no,
I'm with
violent.
You.
I'm not saying it's not violent. I'm saying it's bloodless
obvious.
violence.
Yeah.
That's not the same as no violence.
Yeah, but it's obviously just a spark effect. It's not actually.
I got you. I'm talking about like in the context of the movie. Then you cut to they actively bet on trying to get a cat squashed by cars.
That's true.
That's followed up by a half dozen at least car pileup full of smashed cars, followed by a person.
I think he meant it wasn't gory.
No, I got you. I'm just saying that, like,
no, you're right.
The things I noticed
that
I didn't think about before.
See,
and for
that's
some
sort
reason,
of.
You're not
I'm
wrong.
thinking about them now.
We've actually had conversations like this before, where two people watching the same movie, one can find it really anxiety-inducing, and the other can go, kind of ho hum, And I would even bet you that it can change from week to week. That next year you and I could come back to this movie. You're in a different place. I'm in a different place, and we could actually see the film again, which is fascinating to me. That's
my main point though is I've watched this movie many times.
Yeah,
it never sat like this for me. Yeah, until watching it this time. The cat gets stabbed.
That's true.
Like, and then nobody seems to care. Like nobody takes, like, even when he sees it, he's like, oh man, it looks pretty bad. I didn't take him to the vet, but whatever. And then
people treat cats differently.
Get euthanized at the end,
right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's weird to me. It was fascinating to me in the aggregate as well. Like I was not only watching the film, but kind of ruminating on why it's different now. And I think it's just generally your circumstances dictate a lot of why you enjoy a film. And I still enjoyed this, by the way.
Do you think that... go ahead, Drew. I'm sorry.
This is just like before you get too far away from this, the placing of the bets on like whether or not the cat gets squashed or not. Like, yeah, that's kind of ghoulish in the way it's presented. It's funny, but it's also, demented. That also is an important, we'll talk more about this when we actually get to that story, but that's also showing an important character trait. It wasn't needlessly put in there.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it gives me anxiety when people are like, hey, this is cool. Let's squash a cat.
No, you're right.
I don't think they're saying that guy is. I don't think that they're saying that guy is cool. I think they're saying.
But I never said that. He says he thinks it's okay. I don't know if I think we're misunderstanding each other. That character thinks it's fine that a cat gets squashed if he wins $2,000.
Yeah.
Sure.
And the woman who announces, like, my mom said that cats should always be killed.
So let's talk about this for a moment.
They're terrible people. I mean, it shows that they're terrible people. That's the point. But I found myself, I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but I found myself thinking about it differently. And that was interesting to me because I never thought about that. Or I don't remember thinking about that at the time.
Can I ask you something? Because I know you are a cat person.
Yep.
Did you own a cat at the times, the other times that you have watched this movie, or do you think it's possibly that being a pet owner has
Absolutely, I had cats all my life.
Okay, never mind then. Okay, I am dead wrong about that.
I just want to bring up, though, an interesting thing that this movie... a theme in the movie is the weird way that people treat cats and talk about cats and violence towards cats that we may not even be all that familiar with now, just however many years later. This is 35 years later. You don't hear people talking about weird, irrational fears of cats stealing babies' souls. You don't... Like, nobody would talk about drowning a cat in a river unless you were like... that's the most like 1920s strange backwoods thing I've ever heard. And so I think so it's weird. They're using all of these like motifs to keep going at them. But I agree with you, Tony. If you, like, for instance, if instead of a cat, they were betting on, I don't know, like a kid or something. The thing is, that would be too much into the realm of the fantastic. Then you're in the world of like trauma, with but I hear you, and I think that's fascinating. So let's keep coming back.
Movie for me, it's just, it was interesting to me that I just never really thought about that and didn't remember it. And then I was like, man, I don't know. This seems way different than I remember. The feel of it was different than I remembered.
I don't disagree with you at all, and I also think that that sort of bad taste, leaving a bad taste in your mouth is worth thinking about, because at least that makes it a more interesting work than if it left you completely cold. Because for me, I wasn't really much responding to it at all. Having said that, let's get into the first story. Quitters Inc. Quitters Inc. is about James Woods, who we are to accept as a normal, everyday, non-sleazy American male, is a smoker in the ways that in 1985 it was pretty normal to be a smoker. Like, I remember working in various jobs in the 80s. I was in high school, and I worked for a while, for instance, at this telemarketing gig, and everybody had you had a computer. It was a monitor. You had a computer, you had a headset, and you had an ashtray. There were like 40 people in this room. And that was, when people talk about a smoke-filled room, it was a smoke-filled room.
I remember there being smoking on airplanes.
Hell yeah, there was smoking on airplanes.
We talked about it before. Like, there's a reason why there's a no smoking sign. I mean, now it's just always no smoking, but like,
you've got your cigarette lighter adapter in the car, and car doesn't even come with a cigarette lighter anymore. They still call it that, which I find hilarious, for plugging in whatever it is that you want to plug.
That actually came in to the story where he's like lights a cigarette because he's sitting in traffic at the drawbridge, and he's got his cigarette lighter, and I was thinking, well, that would have been a good thing to get rid of when you first decided to quit smoking.
The way, it's funny to me, the way the cigarette lighter used to work is the most hilarious thing that you would not have any reason to know if you never used one ever. But back in the day, you punch it and then it would take like 10 seconds or less
Yeah,
to
just a
heat
little
up, and then it would go punk, and then
pop
you'd
back
pull it
up.
out and it was lit. And yeah, so anyway, this guy smokes the way everybody smokes. There's a scene in here, in fact, where he goes to a party later and the party is full of smoke. And I just want to think, if you're watching this and you're part of a generation that's younger than me, I keep wondering, like, do you have any idea what it's like to walk around in your city and everywhere smells like smoke? I just wonder, like, is that like if somebody got into a time machine and went back to like 1982, and they walk into the grocery store or into the coffee shop or into their workplace, would they be shocked to find all of this smoke just literally everywhere? I often wonder about that.
I don't know, man. When we went to Japan, it was still pretty.
That's what I was gonna say. Is if you go to other countries, it's still like that sometimes.
Is that
it's
so?
not-
Absolutely.
Yeah, there was a there was a really crazy pachinko parlor, and I mean, you don't go into a pachinko parlor without if you're allergic to smoke. But
Right.
they advertised the top floor that was smoke free,
Uh-huh.
and it's Japan, so they're serious about a thing.
Right.
So the top floor was immaculate. Like there was I don't know how they did it because smoke floats up.
Right.
So why the top floor was it, I have no idea, but there was no smoke in there. However, by the time you got to the top floor, you were quite smoky.
Right.
And I'm not, again, it's not, this is how, I'm not going to enforce my views on something like, oh man, because rain is really susceptible to smoke.
Is that so?
And so, I mean, I have to go to clubs and stuff, and not all of them are, all the ones in Austin are no smoking. But, if you're in a band, there's smoke around.
Don't people still, like, go out front and smoke in front of them?
Yeah. I mean, all the time. So, but it was interesting because the top floor was seriously, you couldn't tell, except by the time you got there, you were pretty smoky.
Well, the way you do it is you have vents and everything that just point straight out.
Right. But it was in like,
it's pretty amazing.
It was crazy because,
that's
it's
cool.
Gambling, pachinko, even though it's kind of more sanitized now, is like it's still gambling, and there's people smoking and playing pachinko all day. That's what they do.
Hell yeah.
You go to
just like Vegas, baby.
Sure.
Yeah. Although a lot of the casinos are now smoke free, which is strange to me to go through.
Has anybody read the short story that this is based off of?
I have, but it's been a while.
No,
I remember it being pretty close, though.
I'm curious if they go into more detail as to how this organization. Like, I always think outside of what's going on in the narrative when it comes to like world building, because I really want to know how this Quitters Inc. organization came into being.
Right.
And B, how no one has sued the shit out of them.
Because they kill everybody who thinks about it.
How nobody has sued them successfully.
I really want to know how this Quitters Inc. came into being, number one. And number two, why has nobody called the FBI or tried to sue them?
Well, it's they're the shadowy corporation, like anything.
Yeah, I'm sure they've been sued, but somehow they've managed to, just like the Scientology, how somehow they managed to avoid, getting shut down. Despite all the crap that they pull.
Yeah, exactly. The fact is, anybody who tries anything, their relatives disappear or lose limbs or any number.
But just technicalities.
Yeah.
But also, this is more. Really, this is Stephen King doing Stephen King comedy. Honestly, truly.
Sure.
I mean, this is his like Richard Matheson would do silly stories occasionally, there was one about this agency that will send a replacement for your spouse or whatever, and
well, that's Stepford Wives.
Yeah, but it was one of his funny stories, and this is really, in the end, as dark as it is, this is really a satire. I don't know anything about this one, but I guarantee you this one is about just where his vermin brain went when he was trying to quit smoking, because
but I was thinking that if you hate your spouse, if you're like sick of them, you wouldn't really mind that whole torture story, so that wouldn't work so well with you. But so the story goes, for those who don't remember, that you sign up to quit smoking, and even basically once you show up to this place, you're in. You can't back out now. And so what they do is they tell you, hey, to show you a little cat being shocked on a floor where basically the cat's like dancing, quote unquote, to music, where the music's playing and the cat's jumping around because it's being shocked. So then it's like, hey, so we're gonna bring in so he says, oh, so if I smoke, you're gonna do that to me. He's like, no, we'll do it to your wife, we'll do it to your kid.
Right.
And so if you have kids, of course, very few people would hate their kid enough, although like I say, they might hate their spouse, but
you would, I don't care how much you hate your spouse, you're not going to want to see them tortured.
No, there's plenty of people who would not mind to see their spouse be tortured, especially after they've been grouchy about not smoking for a while.
I'll take
anyway,
your word for it.
But I'm just saying that was what popped in my head, is that wouldn't necessarily be a disincentive for every single person, but the children for sure. So anyway, so then of course they make it clear that they know where his child goes to school, and they know his wife and everything. So he starts to go and light up a cigarette in his house and realizes that there's somebody in his closet watching him. So he does not light the cigarette. But then when he's stuck at a drawbridge in traffic, he thinks for sure nobody around is with the organization. And so he smokes, and then the wife gets brought in to be shocked. By the way, we had one of those drawbridges when I was a kid in Clear Lake, or in Houston, in Galveston rather. Mm-hmm. And that was just what it was like. You just sit and wait for it to go back down after a ship went through.
Oh, we had when I used to stay with my grandparents in Matagorda on the coast of Texas, there was one going to the beach. There was a drawbridge, and I took a summer job there. And so some mornings I was late to work because of drawbridge.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. The craziest thing.
Yeah.
But there's a channel there, and shipping had to happen. So, but yeah,
it's a cool idea, because the idea here is that the mob has figured out that they're doing this out of a sense of morality, in a sense, because one of their dons.
Is that how you think it is? Do you think it's supposed to be the mob? I mean, they act like
definitely the mob,
but
it's the mob. One of their dons died of lung cancer, and left a behest that said, set up an organization that helps people quit smoking by using mob techniques. And so so instead of, hey, keep our secrets, or hey, tell our lies, or do whatever, and we'll do terrible things to threaten you or keep you in line, it's don't smoke cigarettes. And it's brilliant. But what it's really about is not this. The comedy comes from the mob. What's brilliant is Stephen King going on about just how insane it is that you can be this threatened and you can still really, really, really want to smoke a cigarette, and that's
well, I mean, that's
cool.
kind of honest, because I mean, Stephen King has quite a number of substance abuse issues on record, so I'm sure this is a feeling that he's all too.
Oh yes.
It doesn't. There's something here for everybody to relate to, because at some point in anybody's life, you have some kind of thing that you don't want to be doing. It could even
some kind of compulsion.
Or it could even be like going to a job that you don't like. Something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, compulsion, something, and you have to find a way to quit it. You have to find a way to shake it. So it makes this very, like, as much as like the scene where he's, trying to hide the fact that he's smoking a cigarette is really uncomfortable, because what's going to happen to his wife. I think that there's again, I think that's King being really honest about his own failings as a human being. And
absolutely.
He's the king of. I didn't mean to use his name, but he's the king of writing what you know. He's really good at doing that.
Yeah, and especially addiction. And I'm really glad too, because I have talked to plenty of people who either say or just pretend that they have no idea what this is about. That I'll talk about, like, being addicted to food, or being addicted to nicotine, or being addicted to whatever the hell you're addicted to.
I mean, sure, there are people who just don't have any kind of addiction or compulsion, but I think most of us can identify with, like if somebody breaks up with you and you call them, even though it's a bad idea or whatever, those kind of things. I think most of us have that. There are some people who just have tremendous self-control, and that's whatever.
And good for them. Yeah, exactly. That's the one that always pops into my head is in Sea of Love, which is not all that memorable a movie. I haven't seen it in 30 years, but there was this moment in Sea of Love when the guy goes, I am not the one who's using these personal columns. I swear on the eyes of my children, because they're like, maybe we'll follow you and see because the person who's doing the murders is chasing people who appears to be answering personal ads. And he goes, it's not me. And that when the police leave, he's got to be thinking, well, even if I've done it before, I'm never going to do it again. And then he winds up doing the personal columns and going on a date and getting himself killed. And I'm fascinated by compulsion. I'd love to use it in a story sometime because that just blows me away. Anyway, this does happen to him. He gives in. He smokes a cigarette. He's waving impotently at the smoke to try to get it away from his clothes. And he's spotted, and they take his wife and they shock her, just like
they always shock people to oldies for some reason.
It's like Freddie Fender or something. I can't even remember what it is this time. Oh, it was 96 Tears.
Yeah, and the first time it's the Isley brother.
Yes.
So then he does fine after that. But apparently that was enough. He does fine, but he's put on a few pounds. So the guy says, you know what? You need to not gain any more weight. We're going to put your target at 165 or something. Is that what he says? Jeez, which is super skinny. He's like, and he's, oh, what if I get over that, you'll send some guy to beat me to like whatever, break my kneecaps or something. And he goes, no, we'll send somebody to cut your wife's little finger off. And he laughs, and then he goes out to dinner with some friends, and they're toasting to smokers, whatever it's called,
Quitters
Inc. And the wife of the other couple has no little finger, so he's like, "Oh my god!"
Yes.
Why would he doubt that at this point?
I know, right? Jeez.
I like that he's like, to Quitters Incorporated, and she's like, yes,
yeah, to Quitters Incorporated.
Well, he's all chummy with them somehow,
because I think he did quit, and he's happy about it, and he only failed once.
Yes,
so.
That's when it's become when it's truly given itself away as ultimately a comedy. Like I think about the story Full Dark, No Stars, right? That's a deep, deep, dark story by King, and it doesn't have a moment of levity in it. This is a comedy. It is disturbing and it's violent,
a dark comedy.
But ultimately it's a sketch.
It's also the one I think that would be most at home in one of the Creepshow movies.
Yes,
I feel like this is very close to that tone.
Yes, it does have that sort of tone where ultimately it's not that realistic. The whole concept is pretty fantastic. But so it ends on a punchline essentially. I hear you, Tony, that it also sets up that we're going to have a sort of lackadaisical attitude towards violence towards cats in this movie,
and women,
and gangsters are going to be around a lot, and women. Yes. All right. So the next one is called The Ledge. And we get there because we're following this cat who is getting psychic commands from Drew Barrymore, or psychic pleading from Drew Barrymore to messages, whatever. Drew Barrymore, we know when we meet the character later, isn't aware that she's sending psychic messages to this cat, but the cat is getting this in the form of psychic messages from this little girl. And so he hops on the Staten Island ferry and he winds up eventually in New Jersey, and
fabulous Atlantic City.
That's right. Yes, he winds up in Atlantic City, where Baron Harkonnen bets that he will survive. Crossing the street, Kenneth McMillan, who plays the heavy-set, middle-aged gangster Kressner, who, he's either a straight-up gangster or just a rich high roller. He's one of those. But he does have guys, and he does have a penchant for violence.
I definitely think this guy is a gangster. Like if not, he's definitely playing the trope of being the Atlantic City mob boss pretty well.
That's the other funny thing is that in trends in this film, it's only 3 stories here. 2 of them involve gangsters. I just think that's really funny.
This one, though, again, it shifts in tone because I don't think this one is. It's got the gallows humor thing, but to me, this one's so much more Hitchcockian. Like, to me, this could have been an episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Very much. This absolutely could have been an episode because this one is actually also the one that's the most straight up suspense. You know, it's very simple. It's I'm angered with you for having an affair with my wife. I will bet you that you can't survive this human ordeal. If you can survive, you get to leave with my wife and you get a bag of money. That is,
and the
that
wife,
is
by
as
the way,
straight up-
is Patricia Callenber from Sisters, Georgie from Sisters.
Is it really? Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I didn't even recognize her.
Mhm.
I'm really sorry that I missed that. Wow, I'll be darned. Well, anyway, yeah, she's having an affair with her tennis pro, who's played by Robert Hayes, and so he's like, he gives him the bet. You're right. That setup, you know, survive this ordeal, you get the wife, you get the money, or you die. That is just perfectly Hitchcockian. It's right up with this lighter will light 10 times or whatever it is, you know.
He makes a wager. He says, okay, if you can climb all the way around this ledge, you can have all this money. You can have my wife. It's this guy's wife. The girlfriend is actually the old gangster's wife, and I will let you live. But you know, I'm going to torment you and try to make you fall the whole time.
The line is actually, he'll get the girl, the gold watch, and everything, and that's a reference to The Girl, the Gold Watch, and Everything, which is a movie that stars Robert Hayes.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be darned. Cool.
But yeah, that's the essential set. Like, this is a simple setup. It's actually and it's also the only story that seems like it could exist in the real world. Like the other two, like the last story is a straight up, you know, it's a monster story. It's very fantastical. It's got a fairy tale vibe. And the first story has like very much that EC Comics kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like this, I mean, it's still got kind of a sick sense of humor, but it really does feel like this could be something that could happen.
I love that you can build this much time and suspense out of something so relatively simple. It's hard physically to do, but it's simple to explain and it's simple to watch, which is he's got to make his way around. And so what are the obstacles? Okay, well, the obstacles is sometimes the ledge isn't like straight. He has to climb around stuff and it's tiring. And there's wind, you know, the wind is really strong sometimes when he goes around corners. And
there's also the most sadistic pigeon in the face of the planet.
And that's again
what pigeon is like, this is my ledge. How dare you guys get on here?
Well, that's
like,
also cool. Would have fit a Hitchcock tale.
Yes.
Not just because
absolutely.
he did the birds, but just the way that he would set up things.
Yeah.
That feels very much in the realm of Alfred Hitchcock Presents. That would absolutely be there.
Because it's so simple. It's not like something complicated. You know, it's just a pigeon. He's just saying there's an animal on this ledge and it's gonna just annoy you and hurt you and make you want to lose your balance. You know, and because it's pecking at his ankle, which
that pigeon was paying homage to his dinosaur ancestors.
Right.
He's also doing things like blasting him with air horns, and there's a point where he turns a hose on him, you know, because
the pigeon does. No, I'm kidding. I can't believe that the pigeon survived getting football kicked by Robert Hayes.
Yes.
To come back later to attack the mobster guy.
Yes, Kenneth McMillan. Yeah.
It's that T-Rex DNA. Pigeons
Yes.
are more sturdy than you think.
That's right.
Yeah. So he finally makes it all the way around and he crawls over and he says, I'm here to collect my debt. I survived. And it turns out that McMillan indeed is going to Welsh on the bet. Because he's not a Welsher. He's just a very sore loser.
And
he's a very sore loser.
I love the fact that he makes like a big production out of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, he even stages it. Like he's like, okay, when he comes in, I'm gonna say, all right, and then he's like, what's the guy's name? Mr. What?
I can't even remember.
Name. But whatever his name is, he's like Hayes, whatever. We'll say. He's like, all right, Mr. Hayes, and then he says, and then you'll come in and do the thing. And then he's like, okay, so when you say all right, Mr. Hayes, no, it's all right.
Yeah.
But
say it right.
Yeah. So then, what the big production is that he's got his wife's head is in the bag of money, and so he drops the bag. He throws the bag of money, and the head rolls out. It's horrifying, terrifying. So yes, that was, and then of course they're going to shoot him. Is the other
Well, I
part.
like that he is a man of principle because he does give him everything. It's just he's going to shoot him once he has everything.
Yeah,
So
he did give him the gold watch, the woman's head, and the money, and now he's going to shoot him.
To the letter of the law, he did the bet, but that doesn't mean that he's not going to kill him anyway.
We don't actually find out and the guy's name is Norris, it says here. We don't actually find out what happens to Robert Hayes after this because he does get his revenge. I don't know if he runs away with the bag of money. I sure hope he does. But
well, I mean, if he hung out there, the cops would have showed up and it's like, oh, you murdered this guy's wife and stole his money, so he might as well run.
I hope he runs.
Yeah.
I hope he takes the money.
I don't know. I think there's probably plenty of people who could vouch for them because the fact is, like, there had to be witnesses seeing him like clinging for his life, and then the guy being like, turning the hose on him and all that stuff.
Did though, like, well, that is something I actually wondered what while I was watching this is like, what would have happened if somebody saw him? Because like, is this guy powerful enough to where he can? Because I mean, if I am to buy into the universe that this movie is selling me on, I would imagine that cops are always corrupt. But
also he's already shown that he pretty much runs the show around there. So he's already planted drugs. He's threatening, like, hey, if you don't do this, they're going to find the drugs. You're going to end up in prison.
That's true. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Even if people had seen him, I think the story would have been, he was on drugs. I don't even know where my wife is. He stole her from me. Like, I'm the victim here. This guy's crazy. I don't even know what he was doing. Like, how could he do this? Yeah. And would have covered it up because.
And I don't know why he was climbing around outside my apartment. Right.
Yeah. I tell you, he was up to no good. That. Yeah, it would have all worked out if people had questioned.
Well, anyway, it actually works out where he makes Kenneth McMillan climb out onto the ledge, and McMillan doesn't actually last very long because the pigeon takes after McMillan's ankles really quickly. He's not as athletic as Robert Hayes anyway, and he falls to his death
for a really long time. I like the effect. Like,
and he falls. I love that he falls onto the trumpet that he had thrown earlier.
Yes. Yeah.
See, I'm into the sense of humor in this one. I don't know why, I get where Tony's coming from, but like all that stuff kind of makes me laugh. And
I don't know. Maybe I misrepresented how strongly I feel about it. I mean, that's a great gag at the end. Like, there's a bunch of great stuff. It's not like
and he falls right in front of the cat too, which is really funny.
Oh yes, of course.
Although once he actually gets the cat, he's relatively within this guy's character, mind you. He's relatively nice to the cat because it won him money.
It's true.
Like,
sure, he's going to treat it. I mean, he probably gave it pretty good food and everything because it won him a ton of cash.
Yeah, absolutely. So we don't follow Robert Hayes. We assume Robert Hayes ran off with his cash. Instead, we follow the cat, who's watching from the ground level, below a car, I think. And the cat hops a freight train and heads down to North Carolina, where there is a little girl named Amanda, who's played by Drew Barrymore, and who also showed up as the daughter of James Woods towards the beginning.
Yeah, she's in all three stories.
Was she in the second one?
Nothing in this movie takes place in Maine.
That's true.
Yeah. No, I guess you're right. I guess she's not in the ledge because there wouldn't have been anywhere for her to be. I just feel like she shows up there, but maybe she doesn't. No, okay. Well, anyway, she's in the first, at least the first and the third.
But in the third one, she meets the little girl who wants to keep him. But the mother has several problems with this cat. One, the cat's a stray, and she's worried that it could have a disease, and they'd have to spend money getting it checked out, all of which is real, of course. And then they have a bird, and she's afraid the cat will try to kill the bird. And she has a lot of her own just old world prejudices against the cat because apparently her mother is a gypsy woman from Romania or something. It's impossible to tell because her husband does this bizarre thick accent.
It sounds like he's trying to do Bela Lugosi's Dracula.
But whatever. Okay, so her mom's supposed to be, I really don't know. I don't know. It's impossible to say. But she has these old ideas about cats stealing babies' breath. But the reason this cat has come here is because the cat has been summoned psychically to protect Drew Barrymore from a creature in the wall. Tony, can you explain what the hell is this creature? What does it want? Why does it do the things it does? And anything else that you want to explain about this creature?
Well,
I know you like the creature.
Yeah, it's done really well. They do a lot of really cool force perspective and changing the size of the sets. All that stuff's done really, really well. So it's trying to steal her breath. She's told her parents that it got kicked out of whatever bridge it was under, and now it's trying to get her. And of course, they're like, "What a fanciful story!" I mean, kids make up stuff, so. But still,
yes.
Holy crap, it's terrifying, and it only
the troll is able to reseal the wall, which is
amazing. It's got a hole, but it can reseal it, so the parents never see that. It's not like they go, "Oh, look, that's just a mouse hole." It's just there's no entrance or egress at all. It's a weird design though, because it's got like these jester bells.
Yes,
like a jester bell hat. Its face looks really cool. They did an awesome job of articulating that. It carries a weird knife that sometimes seems way bigger than it actually like when they show it at the end. But its job
of the force perspective is weird. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, its job is to steal Drew Barrymore's breath.
Yeah,
and General the cat is supposed to save it. Save her from this troll, and that's why she psychically reached out to him. And it's equal measure her being in danger and General being in danger because the mom really hates General.
It's really delightful. I mean, this story of the cat that's going to save her. It's so even though, of course, again, like you said, the mom is doesn't trust the cat. And that's the conflict besides the troll. But it's such a sweet idea. The idea that this little girl has a guardian cat that's going to take care of this weird imp that lives in the wall and is giving cats a bad name.
Well, she doesn't like. Brilliant. Yeah, she doesn't like because the cat. They have a bird, so of course the cat is a stalking. It's like it stalks a bird outside. So she's like,
yeah. I mean, they show it doing what cats do,
right?
And so that's.
Then,
I was surprised. I was surprised that they didn't have it like carry the bird to the front door or something like that. Which I mean, I've had cats, outside cats, and every once in a while they tell you, "Hey, you suck at hunting. Yeah, you suck at hunting. I'm gonna help you. Here's a animal. You should learn to hunt better."
Our little dog brought us a dead rabbit. And we all screamed at the top of our lungs, and so she got the message pretty quick that was not something that we wanted.
Right.
Just done it again since then.
But in general, they're like, "Hey, so here you go. I'm gonna help you." Thing. But yeah, they don't do that. But yeah, and to the point where the cat, the final straw for the mom is the cat busts in to take out the troll and ends up knocking over the bird cage.
Yeah.
When it's knocked over,
the cat doesn't do that. The troll
Oh, that's right.
Breaks into the bird cage and kills the bird. And then the cat comes in, and so she assumes when she sees the dead bird that the cat did it, but it was actually the troll.
Yeah,
but the cage is knocked over, so it looks suspicious. It looks like the cat did it.
Yes,
and in the meantime, the troll stabs the cat.
I have no patience for people like the mom in this who get like. I understand that she thinks the cat ate the bird. That's what a cat does. Like I had a dog when I was a kid, and we had kittens. And the dog, we at one point broke out, and it's sad, but it attacked one of the kittens and it killed it. I did not freak out on that dog for being a dog. I don't understand people who, if you're going to have animals in your life, you have to accept the fact that animals do not have the value system of a human, and they're not going to look at things as a human. And while you can have certain animals that in the wild would be, predator and prey, that has to be handled very delicately in the way you start making them interact with each other. So like,
Yeah.
everything that the mom does in this just
Yeah.
annoys
but that's
the
because she
hell
didn't
out of
want a
me.
cat. She
She's
didn't want a
highly-
cat to begin with.
Yeah, she's super duper irrational the whole time through. She doesn't like cats. She's actually being really pissy about this cat.
Yeah, she didn't want
always
the
around.
cat. She's irritated that the cat exists. She's irritated that the cat appears to have killed
She takes it
their
she
bird.
basically takes it to get put down.
Oh,
She
yes,
takes it
exactly.
to the pound. Yeah.
It just really just I don't know. I was grinding my teeth, like, and I'm sure this is how they told the actress to behave, but like it also
Mhm.
just seems like really rooted into some like 1950s shrill housewife stereotypes, because like the dad is the more calm and like he's more in tune to what his daughter actually wants. And I don't know, like they made the mom in this as annoying. Like even at the very end of the story, she still kind of wants to get rid of the cat. And I'm just
Yeah.
I just
Right.
like, if a cat saves your daughter from the troll, cut the cat some slack, all right?
Yeah,
Like,
and that's
I don't
what
know.
I mean. I'm with you. That was the thing. Is like, man, and I get it. It's tough to be a parent and you have to do what's best for your child and everything. But even when the dad picks up the cat and it's stabbed, he's not like, man, I wonder if I should take this cat to the vet. It's like, oh, it's pretty torn up.
Let me just point out that being a parent is a sorry excuse that we sometimes use for being a jerk, and that's she's being a jerk, and that's just, that happens sometimes. Could be a bad year for her. Who knows? But
why take it out on a cat?
yes, no, good
And
point.
why get mad? Like I know the cat didn't actually eat the bird, but getting mad at a cat for eating a bird is asinine, because
That's
what
something
cats
you
do.
brought up once before. I remember we were
But
talking about.
I disagree. I disagree. I think if you didn't even want the cat and you've been putting the cat out and the cat breaks in and kills the actual pet that you actually wanted in a cage, no less, I would be pissed off for sure. I would be really mad. That's like I was really mad at our dog.
Cat's got a cat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was
I
really
don't know.
mad at our dog for biting our daughter, and that's a thing that dogs do. But I still got really pissed off. You know what I mean? So I just think that's it's acceptable because she didn't want the cat to begin with. So she's saying this is why I didn't want a cat, because this is what cats do.
Little did we know that her husband's ex-girlfriend had tons of cats. We don't see
No,
all
I
of
mean,
that.
there's also this. Well, I mean, several things. First of all, there's also shorthand going on where you make the characters sort of outlandish. She's more difficult than she has to be, just to sort of push the story along. And in the end, there's this comedic note as the little girl is bargaining with her, and it's all really cute and blah blah blah. I remember, by the way, Drew, you were talking when we did, I think it was Return of the Creature, which is the second Creature from Black Lagoon movie. And I remember you talked about how this is an animal, and these people are being stupid with the way that they are handling this animal that they have brought into SeaWorld. and I just thought that was such a wonderful thought, that you have to treat animals with the respect that animals are due. Sort of expect them to behave that way.
I am oddly compassionate towards animals, but for someone who's been in the meat business as long as I have been. But
lots of ranchers are, I mean, yeah,
that's true. But also, I particularly predatory animals. I hate the way it's such a trope in fiction that I hate the way that we make prey animals are always portrayed as inherently good.
Yeah.
And predatory animals are always portrayed as inherently evil.
Yeah.
And that isn't actually true. Like, I mean, cats, of course, are often, portrayed as being part of like black magic and being bad luck. and that kind of thing. This is also a problem with like the way wolves are heavily associated with being evil and things like that, but wolves are actually very loving, and cats can be that way too. I'm not quite the cat lover that Tony is, but I have owned a few cats in my life, and cats can be wonderful companions. And it just really, I don't know why, but it's just like a trope that I see in pop culture, and it really just bugs the hell out of me. And this movie ultimately isn't as bad as others, because like the cat is ultimately this little girl's savior, but
Yes.
like all the stuff with the mom, I'm sorry, Julia, like I just hate her. Like I
she's
think
not
she's
a
the
pleasant
worst.
character for sure.
You
She's
might
definitely
be
not.
more right to complain also about the movie's kind of misogyny, that it's going to make the mom into this harridan.
Totally. Yeah.
No, the reason that she I didn't like her either, but the reason I don't like her is not because of how she is about the cat, but because of how she is toward her daughter. So like when her daughter goes outside and is like screaming for the cat after the mom has taken the cat to the pound,
Yeah.
she just kind of closes the window and is like, ugh, like rolling her eyes. And I'm like, dude, you just took your daughter's cat to the pound.
Yeah.
You should at least like console her or try to something. I don't know. I just feel like she's a very cold person.
She
But
kind of
anyway,
gaslights her daughter. She doesn't tell
yeah,
her what she did. She just lets
totally.
her
Absolutely.
cry out for.
Yeah.
But although I have to say, General is one of the best cat names I think I have ever heard. That
It
is a
is.
really kick-ass cat name.
Yeah.
Such a
Yeah.
good cat. So the cat rescues her, breaks out of the pound, goes and rescues her from the troll, who is literally the troll's a bastard. The troll has put a wedge under the door so the parents can't get in, and so if she screams, the parents can't help her. So General jumps in. It has to. How does it get in? I can't remember because the window's closed.
Oh, it climbs up the tree. And I'm really curious. I wish I knew somebody who trained professional performer cats to tell me, how do you get this cat to climb up this tree this way? How do you do it? How do you work with a cat and get it
I'm sure there's probably actually several cats in this movie.
Right.
Yeah.
doing
But-
different tricks,
like
I
training a
suppose.
cat. Now I've seen cat circuses, and I've seen
Mhm.
a show called The Rock Cats, and that was really fun. They came to the draft house, but I'm always amazed because mostly cats are like, nah, man, I do what I want.
Yeah, but so this, the cat's well trained. I agree with Tony that the troll effect is amazing. So when they're having their fight, it's just really great. I mean, there are some cheesy green screen kind of effects, but that's just because of the time. But it's a good.
I'm completely charmed by all of this, because that there is an actor in a troll suit running around oversized props.
Running around a giant bed. Yes. Oh, I love it. I love it. That is so neat.
And a giant record player.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and I love that the record player comes back to every step you take again, like from before, because it had been at the beginning with the smokers, the Quitters Inc. thing. Every breath you take was used because it's "I'll be watching you." So of course they're
I'm
watching
sorry
all the
that
time.
I didn't mention that. That's
and then now they come back to it with that's the record that's playing when the troll starts spinning around, and I love that the cat takes orders.
The troll also stills her breath, so it's kind of apropos for this one too.
It's perfect. And so he starts spinning around on the record, and the cat she says faster, and so the cat moves. I love that the cat knows what faster means and how to make it go faster, so he just keeps pushing the little button, the little lever thing, so that it goes faster and faster, and it's just spinning around and around, and it gets thrown across the room and into the fan and just gets completely destroyed. It's so gross, but I was so grateful that happened, because the parents and thankfully they had also blocked off the hole so you can go back into the wall, because there was a big textbook in front of it. So the parents actually did see that the monster was real, which was very important.
They saw that it had been chewed up in the fan, and so
there's
its
an
little
arm.
monster arm. Yeah.
Well, and the little tiny knife.
Dagger.
Yeah.
By the way, if you want to see some other really good forced perspective stuff, watch The Gate.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 years later, 1987. There's a lot of really cool this bedroom kind of thing that they've mastered it. That's done really well. but it's
That's
similar
really
to
cool.
this, but a couple years later.
Very neat. So she gets to keep the cat, and that's the end. I mean, that.
Well, there is a stinger where you go, oh, what's it gonna be? And then
What
it's
was the
the
stinger?
final punchline. Well, the
don't even
cat comes
remember.
up and you
Oh,
think it's
right.
gonna steal her
Yeah.
breath, but
And it just licks her face. Yes.
And then you get an awesome Cat's Eye 80s, very, very 80s Cat's Eye song.
Yeah.
Woo! Is it 80s?
But the weird thing is, somehow this one, it's fine. I like it, but it is not. It doesn't have the same punch to me. I don't know if it's because it's not as shocking, or there's something that is not as special feeling as a Dr. Terror's House of Horrors or a Tales from the Crypt or any of those. And I don't know if it's just because all the weird horror-ish motifs of those are just so much more vivid than this. I don't know. I can't tell you.
Maybe for whatever reason you just don't have the nostalgia goggles for this one.
I think that thank you for saying that, because I think if we're being honest, that has to be a huge part of it, is that somehow those things from the 60s really appeal to me, because I have this whole mythology around that, Amicus and all that stuff, whereas this is just a movie. It's a good point. Yeah, that might very well be.
Although, would you dissect this to be in your master cut of Creepshow? Because you could totally do that.
Oh, good thought. If we were to do that master cut of the top 5 stories out of the anthologies that we've covered.
Because this would pair well. Like if you were to do Creepshow 2, this movie, and Tales from the Dark Side, and if you were to somehow like dissect them all and make it into like a giant Creepshow
2, this movie, and Tales from the Dark Side. They do go together very well. That's a good box set. First of all, that's a really good box set. But second, let's think about that. Would anything here make the cut in the 7-segment film that I made? If you were to cut in the ones that you like, what would you leave out? Would you keep Chief Woodenhead, for instance? And with the General, I think the General is probably one of the best ones, honestly.
I think that the cat fighting the troll is what people remember.
Yeah.
Like when I talk to people about this movie, that's what people remember from it.
And it would be funny to pair it with the Zuni fetish doll in Trilogy of Terror, actually.
I'm with you.
Or next time we do an anthology series, we definitely need to do Trilogy of Terror.
Can't believe we never have. Karen Black, by the way, the funny thing is, only because I'm a huge perv, I remembered Karen Black as the sexy teacher in that one, and I'd forgotten about the Zuni fetish doll until I watched it recently. But I remembered the sexy teacher.
Did you just confess that you're a huge perv to the internet, Jason?
I don't think it was a necessary, explanation. But if my definition of perv is like thinking that Karen Black is sexy, then I'm guilty. There you go.
Finding random attractive person attractive isn't what I would like. When I think of perv, I at least start at tie me up, tie me down stuff.
Pedro Almodovar.
Yeah, there we go.
See, we'll never have an excuse to do anything along the lines of tie me up, tie me down, and that's okay. But yeah. Anyway, Trilogy of Terror would be super good. Zuni fetish doll would go well with General. I guess that's the only one. I don't know if I'd keep Quitter's Inc. I don't know if I would keep The Ledge. The Ledge is like you say, The Ledge is one of the best suspense ones. I can't think of any of them out of all of those movies you listed that is as suspenseful as The Ledge. So there's that, where you have that perfect will this lighter light 10 times kind of thing. So I don't know. In fact, let's get our final thoughts. In other words, would you or wouldn't you tell people to put this on their rotation? I think that Tony's come around. He was a big proponent of it, now less so. I'm curious where you're feeling now that we've discussed it a lot. But it was Tony, Joya, Drew, and then I'll go. So Tony, talk to us about.
Well, I mean, despite the fact I had different feelings than I did perhaps previously, or as far as I remembered.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen this a bunch of times. It was,
Yeah.
I think it was on cable a decent amount.
Is that so?
If I remember correctly. And I watched it, I don't even know, So I definitely enjoy the movie. It, like I said before, it just had a different something about it because of circumstances just felt a little bit harder, which is weird because it's a PG-13. Like, I fully understand that this is all me.
Sure.
But I just had a different feeling about it. It's still really well put together. There's lots of great bits. By no means is kind of what I was getting at a knock as far as this goes. But it just had a different flavor than before. Like you said before, I may watch it again and go, "Oh yeah, I'm totally fine with this." But it's just a different. Watching it this time was just different. But it still made me appreciate all the things that we've talked about, like it's suspenseful. It's interesting. It's good adaptations of the King stories. And Drew Barrymore's awesome. Of course, everybody's doing great in all of their roles. They're doing exactly what they should be. I love the practical effects. That I'd forgotten how expressive the troll's face was. Whoever did that puppeteering.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, they really knocked it out of the park. And his all of his sounds when he's laughing and all of that.
Yeah.
So good. They trained a cat to do all this stuff. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But it's enjoyable, and I definitely think if you like anthology movies and for some reason you haven't seen this, of course, add it to your queue to watch or rent, I guess, as it stands. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It just had a different flavor this time.
Excellent. Julia, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely recommend it. I think it's really fun and fast moving and interesting, and there's great acting, great effects. But I think I think there's a couple things that don't age super well, but mostly it ages pretty well. It doesn't. I don't think it's. I mean, it's dated as far as like some style things, but other than that, I think it's very, very good to watch. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the conversation about it, and I think that I don't know. Since I didn't do Creepshow 2, I don't know what the challenge was exactly, but I don't know which one of these I would throw out actually, because I think they're all really good stories.
Excellent. Okay. Monsieur Drew.
I had fun watching this. It's not one of my favorite anthologies either, but it's still a good time. I actually like all three of the stories. Usually there's one that I like less than the other. This one, I like them all about the same. I do think the troll story is probably the most memorable, but they all have their moments. So I think this is a fun view, especially right now when we all don't have a lot to do.
Yeah.
If you're just wanting something that's going to be entertaining, like this is definitely solidly entertaining horror flick. I don't know that I guess I kind of see where you're coming from with Jason, that it might not be as memorable as other things, but I still think it's fun. So I will just end my thoughts on there. I think it's a fun movie.
I think your comment about nostalgia goggles is definitely on point. So I really enjoy this movie. It doesn't have any of the sort of weird vintagey feel. It feels to me, even though it's quite old now, it's it's what 35 years old. It still feels fairly recent and not all that vintage. So it doesn't have any of that. So it's just a movie, and so to that extent, it's fine. But this is probably it was not in heavy rotation when I was young. For whatever reason, I never caught it until a few years ago. So it's also, it's kind of a recent addition to my world. So I'm a solid B on this one. But you know what I want to do as we get into our endorsements? I think endorsements are awesome, but I'm actually just really curious as to what you guys have been doing. This is partially endorsement. I'm curious about what you've been doing different since our worlds have been turned upside down so much. I'm curious about what you'd like to share about what you're doing to like stay sane and just activities that have been cool. Just because I haven't had a chance to ask you guys. about all of that, if you'd be willing to share. If you don't want to, you can just say, I got nothing interesting to share there. So here's my endorsement. But I am just really curious. Like, what have you discovered? What's going on? So going in the same direction, Tony, if you have anything to share, great, or endorse, great.
I mean, my day to day, to be honest, other than being kind of stressful, having to pivot a studio into how we're having to do things, my day to day is I was at work and then I would come home and hang out, play video games, and do music. So I miss playing out, and as I see each gig that I was going to be playing at canceled, that kind of sucks.
Mhm.
But for me, I can find an infinite amount of just stupid crap to keep me occupied. So I've got more than enough video games. I can listen to music. Like I'm never bored in that way. But I don't know. We played, like, this Easter, we played croquet. Like, we have a croquet set. Our yard is not set up for that. So that was fun to navigate a non-flat, weirdly grassy yard that it's not normally how it's played, but that was fun. I mean, I don't know, lots of Animal Crossing, like I've said.
Yeah.
But in general, it's weird because in some ways I think it's my anxiety on unlike a lot of people who are going stir crazy, my end of day hasn't really changed a lot, other than the music thing, which is frustrating because we're supposed to write a whole album.
Yeah.
So I gotta finding the motivation to do that has changed. Like, that's tougher. But to be honest with you, man, the things that I see going on outside are really where I have a problem dealing with, more than anything, because there's a lot of not great things, and I have friends of friends who have had family members pass away. There's a lot of more famous people that I grew up liking their work who have passed away, stuff like that. So that's been really tough. But mainly I'm just trying to keep watching things. I had posted the Draft House is doing Weird Wednesdays, and they're also showing newer run movies.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about animals, they're showing this movie Roar, where none of the animals were hurt, but like 70 cast and crew members were hurt because
Good
it's
Oh my gosh.
grief.
big animals.
Wow.
So that's on the Draft House. That's showing, I want to say, tomorrow. But I did watch Extraordinary, and that was great. It's Will Forte, and it's Irish. I think it's Irish, yeah. Horror comedy that was really good. I think Drew saw it too.
Yeah, I also thought that was an excellent movie.
It's really fun.
Yeah, we watched it, actually. Thank you for the tip on that. We watched it, is what we did during Easter dinner.
Oh, nice.
Is I made a very big ham and some homemade macaroni and cheese, and we watched Extraordinary, and that is just such a fun movie. And it's a horror comedy, but if it definitely leans more towards the comedy. So like, I think it's one you could even show to people who don't typically like horror stuff.
Yeah.
And Will Forte is the satanic pop star is hilarious.
So I've seen there's the reference. There's like this cosmic girl that was his one hit wonder. There's an actual video of, like, I think it ended up being a woman who was the main character, and I can't remember her name. I've seen it at the front of Draft House stuff, but it's cool. It's cool that they're doing that, and it's more affordable. It's like $12-$13.
Wow.
A lot of the first run movies are $20 if you rent them through Prime, and I'm fine with that. Actually, I know a lot of people who hate that, but they have to make the money somehow. 20 is a little bit, but I don't know. I understand why the $20 price point on Amazon. But yeah, that, and I've been watching Toei, the anime, samurai Sentai movie conglomerate, Universal Pictures of it's Toho and Toei, and Toei released their streaming channel, and I think we've talked about that on the Castle Horror.
Yeah.
I watched some of that, and then it seems like there was something else. Oh yeah, I got the new Metal Church album. So music and movies have basically been my balm, if you will. But it's not easy seeing the outside world and just what is going on and people taking advantage of things, and that's really tough. But I just hope that we can. I've seen a lot of togetherness as well in the mirror to that. And so I just hope that we've seen a lot of outreach from bands helping each other and people who are affected, and a lot of people, doing stuff to, make more masks or helping their fellow humans. And I think that's really great. And I hope that continues, even when things retain some sense of normalcy again. But
yeah, that's a really good thought. Well, thank you.
yeah, that's me. I don't know. That's a little bit rambly, but sorry.
No, that was great, and it was sort of exact. I do I do want to sort of capture people's thoughts in this time. Julia, what about you?
So I have a couple things to say regarding what you asked. One is that I think one way I'm coping, or I don't even know if that's the right word, just getting through the time, is spending a lot of time with my kids, being very grateful that so far we're all very healthy and that we have an income still and a home and all that. Whenever it's nice out, we've been trying to get outside and spend some time in the backyard or just go for a walk if we can. These last couple of days have been really snowy and cold, so we haven't really gone outside.
Yeah, we had a lot of snow today.
But also, and like I said, just gratitude. But also for my endorsement, it fits perfectly with what you said, because my endorsement is actually this YouTube show that John Krasinski is doing called SGN, Some Good News. And it's so good. It's like, just makes me just so happy. And I was just like, last night I was watching his most recent one, and I just was crying because he was like doing this wonderful thing for for all the people, the doctors and nurses and everything. And he's had like Steve Carell. He did this wonderful Hamilton reunion thing, and for this little girl, it's just been great. So for sure, check that out, because and then I've said before that I'm loving Jimmy Fallon's at home tonight shows, because his little girls are so cute. So that kind of stuff is making me happy. Just people giving the gift. Oh, we watched the new Saturday Night Live, which was all the cast from home. So all these things that that artists are giving, to the world, just for free and just out of the kindness of their hearts. Well, the SNL, I guess, is just because they felt like they needed to do something, or probably Jimmy Fallon too. But the John Krasinski thing, he just made up this thing and decided to do it. And a lot of musicians who are putting out concerts and that kind of thing. So that stuff has just made me really feel good and happy. So yeah, that's where. But I want to say, just as far as a shout out, I'm so sad and sorry for all the people who lost their homes and their lives in these tornadoes yesterday. That's just awful. Awful. So, I am thinking about them, and again, grateful that we have a home over our heads.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Drew, what are your thoughts?
So it's
things
kind
you've
of
been doing, endorsing, whatever you like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as far as an endorsement goes, I am in total agreement with Tony that everybody should go find a way to see Extraordinary, because that movie is terrific. But it's been kind of a mixed bag for me. Like, some days I feel pretty good, and honestly, some days I actually feel really like I'm living my best life, because like I sit out in my car. Like, I love rain, and it's been raining a lot in Austin lately, and so like I actually have like a table out in my courtyard, and I'm able to pull my laptop out there and like just write for hours and lose myself into that, because like if I'm creating the world, I don't have to be drawn into the chaos of the real world. And that's nice, and I get to spend a lot of time with Jamie, and I love that. And so I feel almost bad saying that there's certain things about this that I actually love, but then there's just a lot of stuff about it that's hard. Like I periodically talk about it on the podcast, but I hate the phrase, but I'm mentally ill, and the constant barrage of like negativity in like the news, and just things that I see people saying to each other on social media, like it I find it all very it's hard for me to feel like myself when I'm seeing all that. And like, so there's some days where I feel very good, and I feel like I'm like the parts of myself that I like. And then there's other days, and like today was more of like a negative day, and I feel like it's like I'm the version of myself that I don't like very much. And so it's like that constant back and forth for that. And like I like feeling optimistic, but when I see so many I've said this a ton of times on social media lately, but when I see so many public officials acting like the goddamn mayor from Jaws, it just like I don't know, it just makes me sick. But as far as stuff that I did to pass the time, other than writing, I've been doing a lot of writing, which is therapeutic, but we'll see how good any of that stuff is. But like everybody else, like I self-medicate with the things that I like. I've been reading books, I've been reading comics, I've been watching a lot of movies. I've been revisiting some shows that I haven't seen. I've been watching new shows. I like, as I said on one of the Hangout episodes, like I took the time to get back into the Venture Brothers, which is something I find very calming. I've been watching, I have the Godzilla box set that Jamie got me, so I've been watching the Godzilla box set a lot. Rereading old issues of Fantastic Four. I also just rewatched the entire Doom Patrol TV show. Like, stuff like that. I don't think any of that stuff is drastically different than what other people are doing. But the stuff that makes me feel the best, the times I feel the most normal, is when I'm either hanging out with Jamie and like yesterday was Easter and we brought our pet rabbit out into our courtyard, and it was whimsical and fun. And when we do stuff like that, I feel normal. Or when I'm working on stuff with the comic, those are really the two times I feel most normal. But then, like, anytime I get in the car, like if you drive through downtown Austin, it's total like Dawn of the Dead down there. Like everything's boarded up and there's like this sense of desolation because there's like homeless people everywhere. So like, again, I'm just having this extreme pendulum between good and bad. And I'm hoping eventually that the pendulum will stick to good, but we'll see.
Wow. Thank you. I'm trying to think. The funny thing is, if I'm honest with myself, I am often very successful at not thinking about how bad things are or how bad things can be, because I can insulate myself. I have a job to work, but when I'm not doing that, I have an office and I can hole up in it, and I have all these deadlines, and so I can just keep hitting those deadlines and just obsessing about it. And then when that's done, there's always another one, and if there's not another one, I can invent one. So, I'm very effective at like hammering up psychic plywood all the time on whatever events there are into the real world. But I feel much the same as Julia. We've been having a really good time. There's in the company I work for, there's a lot of people who travel to sell. They work big accounts all over the world. So they're going down to Latin America. They're doing whatever. They're not right now. So during this time, everybody said, you know what, take this opportunity to like spend time with your families, because when it's all over with, you're going to get back to it all. And we'll look back on these moments. So what I'm trying really hard to do is go, what are the things that I will overlook later? What are the things that I need to take advantage of right now before the opportunities are gone? But I'm very blessed that I have those opportunities right now. We have a daughter who's going to go away to college at the end of the summer. These are the last moments that we'll have her. God willing.
Stable. Yeah.
But in theory, these are the last moments that we'll have her just laying around the house. Ever, and that's.
I don't know about that. I did plenty of laying around the house in the summers between college.
So so that's not particularly deep, but yeah, it has been kind of cool to spend time with family. But I haven't like had a chance to like watch a bunch of movies that I wanted to watch because I've been busier than ever before. I've got so many deadlines; it's crazy, right? So hopefully that'll all be over pretty soon. But and God willing, this quarantine will be over pretty soon, and then I'll be like, gosh, I should have taken that opportunity to watch every James Bond movie. But speaking of watching things, I just want to mention, I think it's called Retrovision. There's a new Roku channel. Tony, have you seen this? That they have right now in my office, I'm playing Goku Midnight Eye with subtitles.
Retro Crush.
Retro Crush. There you go. Yeah.
That's amazing. It's all like old school 80s stuff.
They got Bubblegum Crisis. Holy mackerel.
It's really, really good. A lot of it
Yes.
you'll find on Amazon and a few others, but having it all aggregated into one app that's free
For real.
is pretty fantastic. So
Yes. Blue Submarine #6. This is all fabulous.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Anyway.
I mean, I also, to be honest with you, it's weird to me because we do these things and we're all self-medicating however we can. And one of those things is getting together and doing this podcast. And, it's also hard because sometimes I feel really guilty because, I mean, that's a privilege that not everybody has, especially.
Yeah.
Not everybody is able to get to even groceries that they need and stuff like that. So
right, much less the high-speed internet and a Roku device and all that stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, anything like that. And so when I say, it's this double-edged sword, so I'll talk about in these pockets of me dealing with my own stuff, I could play a video game or whatever but again, in the wee hours, a lot of times what's keeping me up is the fact that not everybody has that advantage or that ability and how privileged a lot of that is. And we've tried to we've given money where we can, and I try to help businesses where I can. And if it's entertainment industry, music stuff, I feel strongly about that. But we've also given to different places because that's what you do. I tip half at least when I have something delivered, or if we go to a restaurant that's doing like contactless stuff. But even that, not everybody has that. So it's been weird, man. Like having it affect so many people and realizing that privilege and then trying to also give where you can. But, that stuff does keep me up because we're lucky in so many ways. And, it can turn at any point. So, I mean, you really just have to help people where you can. Don't be a jerk and try to have some empathy. And if you are privileged, now's the time we can give a little more. I'm not saying I'm super successful at that, but I do try. But it is, man, it's weird times.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too heavy, but that's the kind of stuff when you're asking, like, that's the kind of stuff that keeps me up is even if I'm somebody's like, oh, I can't. And where everybody has their own crap they're dealing with, because everybody already had their own crap to deal with, and now it's this too. I'm reminded of that constantly. But I mean, we're extremely lucky that we can get together like this, and that thanks for everybody who's been enjoying all the Hangout episodes and just listen to us kind of babble on it. And I think it's this reciprocal thing where now we do this on the internet, but playing music, you hope that there's a crowd because that energy flow keeps going. But for us, when people go, oh man, I enjoyed this, or hey, that was really funny, or if somebody says it took their mind off of things or whatever, that's nice. And so we hope that that's what's happening, and it's not just us pontificating about.
Even if they are, I'm having a good time
fiddling while Rome burns. But I don't know.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you very much. That was really great. I'm glad we talked about all this. This was really good. And what I want to try to do is just pay a little bit more attention, because I've been throwing myself into deadlines too much as just a means of coping. But I think it's probably also fair to say my heart goes out to anybody coping in any damn way that they want. I have a lot of compassion for almost any kind of self-medication at the moment.
Yeah, don't hurt yourself and don't hurt others. And other than that,
like, are you hitting the Snickers bars a little too hard? I really don't give a shit. Nobody's gonna, nobody who loves you is gonna hate you for that. It's fine. So there we go. All right. Well, have a fantastic evening, everybody, and we will be back on Thursday to discuss Toho Frankenstein. We'll be back this Sunday to discuss Invasion of the Body Snatchers. With the monster movie Happy Hour. We have an interview tomorrow with Joe Bob Briggs, and coming up in the next couple of weeks is also some other interesting interviews, one of whom is a very, very famous late night movie host. So we will keep that one for later. So, all right, have a great week.
As opposed to Joe Bob Briggs.
Right. Good call.
In addition to Joe Bob Briggs.
In addition to
another famous.
Yes. There's only a small number of people that could be.
All right. Everybody have a lovely evening. I will talk to you soon. Bye.
Later.
Bye.